Thank you very much. I'm going to read out a statement that Sosan Shakir has just written, and she's sitting over there. My name is Sosan Shakir. I was a resident of the tower, and I also lost 6 members of my immediate family. My mother, Syria Shakir, my sister Nadia, my brother-in-law Bassem, and my 3 nieces, Zainab, Mirna, and Fatima, aged 3, 11, and 14, 3 of the 18 children killed. I want to tell you that it's been chaos from the beginning after the fire. This council was left in charge, and it was confused.com. We are the ones who should have been confused because of what happened, but we have had to chase them and sort things out to this day. It is pathetic. The council should never have been left in charge of the disaster, as they were one of the main culprits. It just didn't make sense. Everything has been a fight and struggle with this council. We had key workers who came and went. Nothing was ever clear, and it still isn't. We shouldn't have to chase. They mucked us about. When you tell your key workers something, they say, I don't know. We had to find out things for ourselves. We were not in a fit state to manage all the confusion that this council created. The way they dealt with it all was so unfair. There were no systems, so it created a lot of division and family splits. It created unfairness, which we are struggling with to this day. The council now talks about change, but I don't know what has changed. I still don't know what you've done. I try not to deal with the council at all. I try to go through my key worker, which helps if you have a good key worker. That can make the difference, but it's usually not been a very good experience. I also want to say you need to stop changing them every couple of years. We let someone into our lives, the details of our situation. We have to get used to them, and they have to get to know us, but then they change. We need stability in key workers. You need to hire people who stay for the long term, because we need that continuity. It is really annoying when you put people in the system who come and go. Their contracts need to be for at least 4 years, and some sort of provision to deter them from leaving. You put people into the system who were terrible. I don't know who does your hiring. All the confusion could have been avoided if you got some proper people in instead of learning on the job with one blaming the other. You do need to change to make things better for us, especially the immediate families, because we lost not just our homes, but our flesh and blood in a terrible, horrific, terrifying way. And that will never change. But you ignore all that. Your staff dealing with the immediate families need to be of higher experience and capability and have answers for everything. If there's a problem, they need to be able to solve it straight away and answer questions instead of being just a link in a chain to say, oh, I'll get back to you, and then we have to keep chasing again. We are worn out by this council's incompetence. If by now they don't have responses immediately, then I don't know what hope there is. The council staff have no power to do anything, and it's always we'll get back to you, just like the night of the fire, with the LFB, the London Fire Brigade, saying, stay put to my family, when it was obvious their policy was not the right response, but no one can react quickly enough to make a difference. It's the same thing. Too much bureaucracy and too slow. We need urgent attention and services and response to the needs of us, the immediate families now, because you are in charge, but you don't seem to care about the impact of what you did and what you're continuing to do to us. From the NHS response to the council, it has been terrible, and there's been nowhere to go. I hope the government is listening. They should never have left this council in charge, and they should never have treated us this way after the fire.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sosan.
And now, Ms. Zebahian, I invite you to speak on your own behalf.
Well, actually, it's not on my behalf, but thank you. I'm Kimia, the advocate for Grenfell Next of Kin. These are the immediate families of those killed due to state and corporate negligence in the Grenfell Tower fire catastrophe. I use the word catastrophe because language matters. I use the word killed because they did not die, they were killed. They are not bereaved, they are next of kin. Everyone has a mother, a father, a brother, sister, husband, wife, partner, son, daughter, grandparents, and grandchildren. Each one precious with a gap left that cannot be filled. So when this council talks of change, nothing can be said to have changed if you have still not recognized this fundamental fact of human existence anywhere in the world. We're not animals, we have kin, just like you. Maybe some of you could imagine putting yourselves in their shoes. Imagine for a minute if you lost your parents, children, siblings, partners in this way, sometimes an entire family. Imagine if you can, and then we can talk about change. The fundamental problem here was that the very same council that was at the heart of this disaster, and identified as such right at the very start, was left in charge of the disaster and then the recovery. One next of kin put it as, it's like being locked in the house with your abuser. Another said it was leaving criminals in charge of the crime scene. But this is the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, with 38 embassies and high commissions, a royal palace, which was at the time the home of the future King and Queen, boasting of the most expensive real estate in the country, and the money laundering epicenter of the UK, often highlighted in Netflix documentaries. Yet a jewel in the crown of the Tory party in office at the time, with half the cabinet and prime ministers living just up the road. It would have been too embarrassing to bring in commissioners, but it should have happened and would have if it were anywhere else in the country. It is unforgivable that the perpetrators were left in charge. More concerned with their PR image and reputational damage and protecting self-interest, the families of those killed were kicked from pillar to post and re-traumatized. But let us drill down to specifics. If commissioners had been brought in, there would have been some level of scrutiny and accountability, systems put in place that would have made the last 7+ years less traumatizing. If there was any effective scrutiny, hundreds of millions of pounds would not have been wasted, with senior council officers saying on the record, "We don't know where the money went, and that is the problem." As we speak, there is still no value for money certification signed off from 2017 onwards, a necessary requirement for audits to be complete. Whilst hundreds of millions of pounds poured in from central government, this council cannot answer what it did with all the money, offering vague explanations of Grenfell recovery and support, when no one can see or felt the impact of this so-called support. So we ask central government to safeguard the public purse and the families of those killed who feel the death of their kin has been exploited, by establishing a Grenfell Commissioner to examine what happened to the financial contributions of the taxpayer, central government and RBKC residents. The inquiry skipped over the aftermath, and that was a failing of the inquiry. It examined only the first week after the fire, and took evidence for only 3.5 short days and called on one minister for a cosy chat. It did not drill down to the post-disaster mess, which was very badly handled by this council, culpable and under criminal investigation, yet left in charge of the disaster and the traumatized victims. Since the disbanding of the Grenfell Recovery Scrutiny Committee, there has been no formal accountability or effective challenge. This imbalance of power between the council leadership and its opposition, as it is with its residents, is too great and far too important, not only for those in North Kensington caught up in this web of incompetence, corruption and exploitation, but for the wider learning that is necessary after such an epic disaster. These functions have to be put in place externally. Those who were in leadership positions before and in the immediate aftermath of the fire hold leadership positions now. So what changed? We ask if it is time for new leadership and cabinet. The machinations of RBKC and certain areas and officers is closer to a medieval court of favours, cronies, and death by 1,000 cuts, to put Wolf Hall to shame. The inquiry notes that the TMO refused to recognise groups which came together to raise issues on behalf of other residents of the tower, including the Grenfell Action Group and the Grenfell Compact.
Ms. Zababihan, your 5 minutes has expired. Could you please conclude?
To recap, RBKC was culpable in this disaster, yet left in charge of the aftermath and recovery. That was a political decision, not a humane one, and it served the council well as it continues to draw down for more funding from central government whilst brutalising the victims. It continues to mark its own homework. There are serious issues around finances, and a commissioner needs to be appointed to examine the records. There is still no value for money certification for the accounts of this council, and auditors cannot sign off the audit. We request from central government external scrutiny, a commissioner to examine the past and the finances, and any new money requested by this council to be tied to robust
Could you please conclude your remarks?
A change of governance with more integration by councillors in the north of the borough, across the council, senior governance and cabinet. It is not long, well, we just want an end to this medieval court system of the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea.